Hey everybody, welcome back. Wayne here. We're going to start part 2 of our series on discovery or disclosure. And this week, I'm primarily speaking to the wayward spouse and just a few pieces of advice and information for them, specifically along this journey of recovery and healing and restoration after an affair. You know, I've said before that there are few things in life that are more difficult than the initial stages of dealing with infidelity. The discovery stage is critical, especially when it comes to recovery and surviving the infidelity. Until your mate understands what happened after the affair, they have a very difficult time moving forward and moving on. And truthfully, actually, most of the time, they can't move on because they don't feel safe. Without this understanding, your relationship may survive, but there will never be a meaningful connection and trust. So what do you do? So here's some ideas. First thing is make the process safe. Discovery or disclosure is a highly emotional process, and it requires that the two of you doing what is necessary to keep the process safe for yourself and for your spouse. Your partner will never be able to find the safety needed for this process if you don't first break off the relationship with your affair partner and let your spouse know that you're willing to explore why you've done this, and you're also want to understand what their perspective is. This process is highly emotional. If it becomes harmful to either one of you, then boundaries need to be set in place and established to keep the process safe. And honestly, if it gets violent, we at Affair Recovery always recommend that the police get called immediately. We don't like that, but sometimes it's necessary. And honestly, don't just answer their questions. Instead, go with the information that you know they want, because your willingness to voluntarily share information reveals that you're committed to them and to this process. And let them know you're not trying to hold back anything. Second, answer their questions. It's impossible for your mate to redevelop trust if you don't first trust them with the information and respect them. Let them know you will answer all of their questions. Our advice for the injured spouse is that they avoid asking questions that compare your marriage to what you did with your affair partner. That's rarely helpful. Or if they compare themselves against the affair partner. If they ask these types of questions, tell them you'll give them the answer if they really want to know. But you'd really like them to consider what we call a 24-hour rule to decide if it's information that they really need or really want. And also, don't put the burden on them to come up with the right questions, ask in just the right way. Go ahead and tell them if you know something. And third, please don't be defensive. Defensiveness, you know, is really nothing more than an overused way of protecting ourselves. It's manipulating and controlling of how others see you. Even if you're thinking about others, your primary concern is still about how others view you. So it's still very, very self-centered. Rather than being concerned about how others see you, try your best to understand what their perspective is. If they feel you're interested in their perspective rather than defending yourself or your own story, they'll be far more likely to return that favor in the long run. All defensiveness, and any form of protection for that matter, accomplishes is creating more and more distance between you and your spouse. Fourth, be rigorously honest. Rigorous honesty is sharing the details you don't want to share. It's bringing to light the pieces you swore that you would take to the grave. And remember, you can never be loved unconditionally if you only let others know who you are conditionally. To begin, be rigorously honest with yourself. Review the patterns of your life And you may find you've been singing the same song over and over and over again. If good intentions haven't created change in the past, then it's highly unlikely that they will in the future as you move forward. And remember that bad marriages don't cause infidelity. Bad choices do. What it is about you that caused you to make those choices. How did you justify your actions? Discovery or disclosure just isn't for your mate. I really believe that it's most importantly for you. And as you're doing some good digging in the sand of your heart and of your mind, be rigorously honest with your mate. Any deception will destroy their ability to trust. Remember last week when I mentioned that the late Peggy Vaughn did some research, and what she found is that 70% of people recuperated from what their mate did sexually before they're able to recover from the deception. It's the deception which destroys their ability to feel safe and to trust after the affair. And don't extend this journey by continuing to tell any kind of lie. I also want you to remember that a quote that I talked about last week, that you're only as sick as your secrets. The parts of the story that remain untold are the places where darkness and deception have a stronghold in all of us. And if you've spent your life trying not to disappoint others, it will be really difficult to let others know who you are. But this is your best shot at being known and being understood. So be honest. Regardless of how they respond, you can at least know you are no longer robbing them of the right to make their own decisions. And fifth, empathy rules. I really want you to try to understand what it's like to live with you. Remember, discovery isn't just for your mate, it's also for you. And until you can communicate to your mate that you get it, you get what you've done to him or to her, it's impossible for them to feel that they matter to you. I want to say go slow. You cannot go slow enough. I know that's counterintuitive, but racing through this process means that you will ultimately take longer to get to the other side. Slowing down is going fast. Use this time to listen to your mate, as well as listen to the story that you may be telling yourself about your mate or about yourself. You know, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, I believe. If what they say is false, then discard it. Let it go. If it's true, then let yourself feel the weight of it. If you don't know, then at least agree to ponder it and consider whether it may or may not be true. At the very least, try to understand what your actions have cost your spouse. And sixth, do everything you can to help them heal. If you created this mess, why wouldn't you want to do what you can do to help them heal? Part of their healing after an affair is simply answering their questions. Let them know daily, that you appreciate that they are still working with you and working through this process. A big piece of surviving infidelity is selflessly helping your spouse heal. The trauma created by your betrayal may create emotional flooding. It frequently does. But try to get your spouse to agree to a timeout protocol where either of you can ask for a 30-minute timeout to let things cool off. Nothing happens good when you're flooded. It's impossible to be rational when flooded emotionally. Rather than let emotions and actions get out of control and make things worse, agree to take a break to protect your relationship and each other. And last, please take responsibility for your own healing. Your mate, seeing you take responsibility for your own healing and doing your own work after the affair will facilitate the discovery and the whole process. It's difficult for your spouse to ask you questions if they fear that they're pushing you back into an old lifestyle. On the other hand, if they see you getting help apart from them, it'll make them feel safe, and safe enough for them to risk asking the hard questions. It'll also provide you with support as you walk through this emotional instability created by the discovery or the disclosure of an affair. One goal of recovery is to learn how to have intentional, rational conversations rather than just emotional conversations. When the two of you learn how to rationally process what happened, you can begin coming up with ways to keep it from reoccurring. If you're having trouble navigating the discovery process, I'd like to ask you to consider enrolling in the Hope for Healing online course for unfaithful spouses. The last thing you need is a program or curriculum which doesn't address the deception or transparency, or importantly, empathy, or the pain that both of you are in right now. This course will not only support you in your recovery, but provide specific insight into what the future can look like for both of you, actually. I hope you'll give the course a shot. Check it out at the Fair Recovery website under the Programs tab. It might just be the thing that puts you on the right path to change your life. So thanks so much for joining me. I'll be back again next week to talk about another piece of this discovery process. So thanks so much. Stay safe and stay healthy. Know that we at Fair Recovery think of you often and want to help any way that we can. Thanks so much.